Hi, guys. Welcome back to the show with no name because it changes every week. So I'm here with the Spikel Cohen. He is either my son or my father, depending on the context. And we have some great stuff planned. How are you, Spike?
I'm doing fantastic. It's funny. It's funny that you say it's the context because I didn't know that there was a context. I thought it was just like really troubling memes that concern me,
Well,
and my family on Christmas.
it disturbed your family. I have to know, did Tasha open hers?
Yes.
I sent her one individually.
Mm-hmm.
What did she say?
Not a lot.
Was it like, what the fuck, Spike? Was it that?
Well, she doesn't swear, but it was a similar sentiment. She doesn't understand it. She'll go on. She goes on my Facebook because she doesn't have Facebook. She'll go on mine to like check with her 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 loved ones on Messenger and stuff, and then she'll go and just see all the tags, and she'll come to me and she'll go, what is this? I'll say I don't know what it is, and then and so then that was like, who's Spikel? And I was like, it's I don't know. And she'd say, I feel like you probably, or she'll say, I need you to, I hope that you can provide some explanation of this, which is sort of the same as, saying what the F. And I'll say, that's the Canadian version. And I'll say, I don't have an explanation. I don't know what it is. I'm hoping it's a phase, but it's starting to feel like it isn't. And that's pretty much that's where we are right now.
I keep getting encouraged. It's not my fault. I don't know if you see, but many people almost live for whatever your face is going to be on next. And I will say, it's been almost exactly a year. You memed me first.
Right? But it was just you. I just put words on it, but it was actually you. I didn't make you doing what, like having that very emotional experience with a smash cake or whatever. Like that was you. That was just an actual photo at you, and I just put words there. And then you're like, I'll show him. I'm gonna put his nipples on everything.
I want you to know that has gotten me through a lot of dark times, and I will get a random idea for a Spike meme. I'll make it and it brightens my whole day. So your discomfort gives me joy.
I'm glad that's happened. A similar thing has happened where now, after hearing that Brandon considers you a female Cartman, I now keep seeing that. And I can't not see it now, right? Like in all things. It's so.
Is that a fat joke?
That's no, gosh, no.
I'm just kidding.
Bad joke, God, no. But no. So that brings me a similar joy, and I don't have to crack open Photoshop for it. It's just something that gets to live in my head. So I have that going for me.
Yeah, Brandon. Many times he's kind of like Tasha. I'll show him one of my memes. I always show him before I post it. I'm like, is this funny or is this not funny? And he goes, like, none of them are funny. Why do this every day?
So you just want to get that reaction from him too. It's like, what do you think of this? And he's like, I don't know. I don't like any of them. No, perfect. And then you share it. Yeah.
Yeah. If he laughs, I know it's not really that funny because it doesn't make him uncomfortable.
So it's important to you that two of the most like important men in your life, your husband and me, don't like it. And then that makes it okay. No, that's good. That's good. It's working for you.
It's a Cartman trait.
Right. I hate this. Yeah. So okay.
I get it. Past your nipples in my memes. You were just on Kennedy again.
I was on. I was on Kennedy again. Yeah, we talked about the likelihood that Joe Biden is going to do what we expected him to do. As soon as we heard he was going to run for president, which is go in and pass some new tough on crime laws and pass some good old gun control, and what that's going to look like for people who don't want to be relentlessly spied on without warrant by the government. And a spoiler alert, it's not good. But so if you want to check that out, what the fun thing about my interviews with Kennedy is I can actually get like normal people to watch them because they're 4 minutes long. usually I'll be like, hey, check this thing out. And they're like, it's 2.5 hours long. I'm like, yeah, but it's really good. You should just take a part of the day to watch this. So with Kennedy clips, I can just be like, hey, watch this. And they're like, oh, wow, this is only 4 minutes. I'm like, yeah, see, look, you could watch it. So, it's good for normie interactions with my family. So
have you ever thought about taking your shirt off on Kennedy?
No.
No, you've never thought about it?
No,
I think about it all the time. All the time. It's really not good.
Yeah, no, that's not good. Yeah, that sounds like another unhealthy obsession that you have.
I do want people to know, though, a lot of people think I spend a lot of times making these. I don't know if you see the quality. I clearly don't.
No, I believe when you're able to pump out like 30 in a day, I feel like that took you about an hour to do the whole thing.
It's my pooping time. Like, it literally takes, I just sit on the toilet and just bust them out real quick. And it takes me no time at all to do these.
That made it worse. Gosh.
Somehow I made it worse. But
somehow made it worse, yeah.
I have an app called Pixar, and I already have like all of your faces from like every picture that I've ever seen of you cut out. And all I have to do is just go click on a face, and there you go.
Well, Godspeed to you. Listen, people love them. People love them. I don't know what to say. I'm going to continue. I'm hoping to create a movement where we all sad react them, and that Facebook's algorithm like demotes you as a result of like that your stuff goes up lower in people's news feeds because I'm sad reacting your time. It's not working. It's not working. And people are looking for the sad react now. So if anything, I've made it more popular.
People have printed out and framed one of these memes. Like, yeah. Anyway, speaking of, I guess Kennedy, like I kind of wanted to stay on that before we got here, but just memes again, So as a lot of people know, Cliff Maloney is kind of in the hot seat right now with the #YAL2 stuff. And he was always on Kennedy. And that's my segue into talking about YAL2. I had that planned, did not go as planned, but that's where we're at.
I like when you deconstruct segues. That makes them all even better.
Thank you. Thank you so much for noticing. So as far as like #YAL2, first of all, let me tell people what it is. There was a culture, probably still is a culture of sexual harassment, all the way up to assault, honestly, and just harassment in general. Probably because it's an organization ran by college kids, but it's an issue that they've had. A lot of people know I've had my own issues with YAL. It was definitely not sexual or anything.
Right.
I called out fraud a couple years ago, and they had like a targeted campaign against like hating me. It was fun. I was really personally excited to see some action being taken this week and seeing Cliff Maloney get fired and see that they're trying to fix things. What are your thoughts?
When this came out, I didn't know a lot about, it caught me pretty much as off guard as a lot of other people because I've not had a lot of interactions with YAL. If anything, the most mainstream organization I've done anything with has been the LP because I kind of came out of the anarchist side of things. So I really haven't been in that, I guess, almost professional libertarianism up until now that a lot of people take when they come up into the LP and things like that. My only real interactions with YAL have been during the campaign. I did some Zoom interviews with like YAL campuses and stuff, like campus affiliates and stuff, like campus chapters or whatever. People like that. I've actually never met Cliff or anything, and I've not really been that involved with YAL other than that sort of, kind of interacting with the kids basically. And so when it came out, I'm like, holy crap, I had no idea. And then hearing your story and a friend of mine named Taylor's story and, a few people like that and realizing this was like an endemic problem, I thought, well, I'm I guess prominent enough figure in libertarianism that I should be giving an opinion on this. And so I put out something calling for, it's funny. I think it was about 15 minutes before Justin Amash did. So we were like both on the phone doing it at the same time. I was in it was this past weekend. I was in California for the Reopen Cal event that I was at. We can talk about that maybe. But after that was over, I get in and I'm seeing all this stuff and I'm like, holy crap. So I kind of just put out there what was on my mind on it, which was that they should have an independent investigation and let it go wherever it goes. If it turned and after I put it out, I read even more and realized that it was pretty certain that there were some problems there. But I left a little bit of benefit for the doubt and said, listen, whether these allegations are true or not, they need to be vetted. If they're true, people need to get fired left and right. And if they're not true, then we know it's not true. But either way, there's no reason not to do an investigation, a true independent investigation at this point. So I put that out. And I think, what was it, like 2 days later, they announced that they were doing an independent investigation. And I think 1 or 2 days after that, they announced that they were firing Cliff. So, I hope that if these allegations are true, then it's not just, one person that was the problem. And if that's the case, then there needs to be a lot of clearing happening, and not just a clearing happening, but a change in the culture happening, and a change in policy happening, so that these kind of things can't happen in the future, whether that means having an actual in-house HR department, whether that means having a more, publicly available reporting system, whatever that looks like, in order for an organization to survive that's that size, and that has this kind of an issue, it has to completely clear house on that, and not just get rid of the figurehead and say, we fixed it, because that's not this. The problem with this was not one person. The problem with this, assuming these allegations are all true, the problem with this is way more widespread than that, and it's a cultural issue that needs to be changed.
You are just so well spoken, Spike. It's sometimes hard to remember that you even have nipples. That's really great. I was actually really happy to see you say something. I mean, I honestly can't think of, I can think of a few things I don't agree with you on, but not many things that I don't agree with you on. And I think that was a really fair statement, fair to everyone involved. I'm really, really proud of the women that came forward. I know that has to be so hard for them because they love this organization, and it's really hard for them. And by being open about something this serious and this personal, they're able to hopefully save an organization that does good work. And,
I think what really struck me as to why I actually believed all or most of the allegations I read was because it came from a standpoint of people saying, I love this organization and want it to do well, but this happened to me and it needs to be addressed. That's not the words of someone that's trying to destroy an organization. And when it's coming from that many different people, that's not just a targeted campaign to get rid of a person or a couple of people. That is someone saying, I love this organization. I love the work that it's doing, but this part of it needs to go. This is a bad thing. And it's a lot of particularly girls are getting sucked into this and then don't realize what's happening, because there's a culture of silence around it. And then when something happens to them, then they can't do anything about it, and the cycle continues. And that's so. But the fact that people are actually coming at it from the standpoint of, I love this organization, I want it to learn from this and stop doing this, so that or to stop the people that are within it that are doing this, so that we can now actually focus on what we're actually trying to do. And I certainly have my disagreements on some of the tactics that Yal takes. I think that they're often a little too chummy with the Republican Party, but I'm also somewhat partisan there. So I think it is a net good that's being done by the organization in terms of its actual activism, and it just needs to deal with this issue. And the beauty of it is that this issue really is dealt with by just holding bad actors accountable, which is what we should be doing anyway. I don't think sexual assault or sexual abuse or sexual harassment or any kind of assault, abuse, or harassment should exist in any organization, and there are some fairly straightforward and intuitive ways to deal with that.
Honestly, I couldn't say it better. You should run for office or something. Like, that was so good.
Well, I did. I got really close. I came in third. So
you did come in third.
I came in third in all 50 states, and I'm told that's the first time that a libertarian's ever come in third in all 50 states. So I'll take it. It sounds like a win to me. I'll take
came
it.
in third. I love how optimistic you are.
I was in third. I was right there.
They might still be counting write-in ballots, so you might actually.
I feel like we're so close to 5%. I'm just waiting.
This close. So before we move on to our awesome guest, talk a little bit about what you just got back from California doing.
So it's called Reopen Cal Now. I keep forgetting that part. Reopen Cal Now, and it's a nonpartisan organization that is. It's actually mostly professionals that have come together to say these lockdowns are bad and they're counterintuitive. They don't work. They're not making the problem any better with COVID-19, and all they're doing is causing immeasurable harm to people and their lives and livelihoods across the state, and for that matter across the country. But they're focusing on California, and so at this, it was a weekend-long conference followed by. They called it a protest, but it was essentially a press conference. I mean, I've been to and organized enough protests to know that was not a protest, but it was a more of a rally / press conference that we did on the steps of Capitol Hill. But before that, earlier in the weekend, it was a symposium with doctors, sheriffs, health policy experts, so this wasn't just rabble rousers. This was people saying, here are the facts and the data on why these lockdowns aren't working, what does actually work to be able to slow the spread. And so not only are they proposing reopening, but they actually have what they call a safe reopening plan, which is to reopen, but to recommend certain measures being taken by individuals and businesses to help slow the spread of COVID-19, which would be able to actually do that without also doing massive amounts of damage to the lives and futures of so many people. And so we had the conference, then we had the protest, and you can't. So here's why it's not a protest. We're on the steps of Capitol Hill. Now you've done protests. You were with me at the protest in Columbus, and we've both done plenty of protests on our own as well. And we get to the steps of Capitol Hill. The police all come out, and then they walk ahead of us and face away from us towards the crowd to make sure no one gets on Capitol grounds. And I'm about to talk, and I thought, this is a different kind of protest, because usually the police are facing us and not protecting us or protecting the grounds that we're on. And it was interesting. So it was a different vibe altogether. And again, there were a lot of professionals there and stuff. And so afterwards, we're all getting together after we did the thing, and they're these ladies and their health policy experts in their 50s and 60s going, that was my first protest. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. And but it was good. It was really good. And 2 days later, we were in Sacramento, and 2 days later they lifted Governor Newsom lifted the stay-at-home order in Sacramento. And I'd like to think that at least part of that was the public pressure that came from the Reopen Cal Now event. So they are planning more of them in the future. If you live in California or nearby, or you're just interested in a professional organization of including law enforcement officers that are saying that this needs to end, it's foolish, and that it's a bad idea, needs to end across the country, go to reopencalnow.com or like or follow them. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, and they're on Instagram as well. And I think they have a YouTube, but I'm not sure of that. And I will more than likely be out there for the next one as well.
That's really awesome. I know I compliment you a lot, but I'm really happy to see you. I feel like you haven't even taken a break from campaigning.
I have not.
You just been out there in the fucking world. I know. And I don't even know where Jo Jorgensen is. Has anyone checked on her?
So Jo has returned to teaching, and the thing is, she was never active on social media before the campaign. And we know, her social media was essentially her social media team. They would take stuff she said, or things that she was going to be doing, and they'd put it out for her. And I had a team as well, but I was a lot more actively involved in the social media, even while, there were a couple months there where I wasn't actively involved in my social media just because I was running around like a crazy person. But I I always anticipated when the campaign was over, Joe would return to teaching. She's a professor, and that she would probably not be on social media a lot because she wasn't before. So I think that this is kind of, I think a lot of people are surprised. I honestly expected exactly this. I think that Joe is, she's gone back to work, and whether
You don't have a job, so.
and I'm retired. Yeah, I'm retired. So I don't have a job. So here I am. One of us is employed. So there we are. And the other one's on the internet. So whereas that's how I was known, was being a professional internet libertarian, and being a professional internet libertarian. And now I've returned to my roots, which is being as I say, I am but a humble middle-aged Jew on the internet. And that's what I'm doing here. So that's what happened with Joe. But I thought after the campaign was over, after the election was over, that people would go, oh, well, we're done. Like, I don't want this anymore. Like in Toy Story, where, I don't want this anymore. That would be how they treat Spike. And I'd go, okay. And I'd go and I'd get to vacation, and I could lay out at the beach and, I don't know, the Keys or something like that. And I mostly, my biggest challenge would be, just dealing with the fact that no one wanted to talk to me anymore. And instead it went this other way, where now people want to talk to me even more than they did while I was campaigning, which is interesting. And it's, it's not as hectic as it was. You saw me in the end of October when I was there for the Waffle House tour that you set up, which was amazing. So you saw me at my most hectic, where I'm just running around all day long, sleep for 3 hours, get on a plane, go to the next place to do it all over again. It's not that hectic, but it's a lot. I'm doing a lot more than I thought I would be doing in January.
Yeah.
So
you do a lot. And it's really cool to see like your commitment to liberty. And just to touch on like how cool you are. My friends' kids, I haven't met them yet. They're new friends. You've met Shiloh, I believe.
Yes.
She's my new friend. We hang out all the time. I'm meeting her children tomorrow, and they're super excited, not to meet me, but because I know Spike Cohen. And she told me that, and I was like, oh, that's so, what the fuck, man? Like, and
like, oh, hey, what's Spike like?
Yeah.
But see, what bothers me about that is that's just going to motivate you to rage Photoshop me even more. Like, oh, you want to know how Spike is? Here, I've got a picture book that I just made. So yeah. I'm so I got that to look forward to. But yeah, it's weird. I've my wife will tell me about, people that she's speaking to. Like her friends and stuff like that. And they'll say like, oh, by the way, my such and such, my friend, my cousin, whatever, loves Spike. And she's like, okay, great. That's good for them. And because she's very unimpressed with all of this, by the way.
I know. It's so funny. We've talked about this before. It's so funny. I mean, anytime I'm around Spike and his wife and I laugh at a Spike joke, because I think Spike is funny, not as funny as me, but I think Spike is funny. Tasha will literally, it is true. She will sit there and just look and discuss, like, why are people laughing at him?
No, she's not nonplussed is the word to describe. She's very proud of everything that I'm doing. But when she sees the adulation, that's a half of why I wanted her there, was because I wanted her to say, I would look, sometimes I'd look at her like, what, I'd come out of the bus and Spike. And I'd get up and I'd start talking. Oh, that's great. And so all this would happen. I'd look over at my wife. I'm like, they get it. And she'd just roll her eyes and, that shit. So, my dad said, find a woman that is not the least bit impressed with you and make her your wife. And I did. And it's working so far.
And the middle-aged Jew, well, I don't think you were middle-aged then, but the Jew went on Christian Mingle and found himself a Canadian wife.
As we are wont to do.
It's perfect. So with that said, I'm bringing on, this is not just any old guest. This is a friend of mine from high school even. So she is a sex worker. I'll let her kind of explain what she does, but she's also an activist. We got to reconnect again later in life, and we both were protesting together for BLM. And let me tell you, this bitch is a front lines bitch. She doesn't stand in the back and go, yay. She's like, she watches her friends, people of color, get upset and is worried about the police interacting with them. So she'll go step in front of them like, bitch, I got this. And so that's like what you need an ally. You need someone who will stand next to you and someone who will take the heat. And it's just great. She is one of the few people who have been on the show who is not a libertarian. I let her talk about it. She's more of an independent. I would say she's pretty progressive. She's super fucking cool. And funny story, this picture in my background right now, this was her in high school. That was her in high school. And this is her yearbook photo. They took a picture. I think she was voted least likely to show up to the high school reunion. And so this is her. That's her now. So I did not recognize her when we ran into each other. And here she is today. Hey, Acrux, how are you?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. I'm so
Thank you for coming on.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I just like watching you two and just listening was nice. So.
You're like, oh God, this is why nobody wants to do politics.
No, I love it.
These prominent people in that party? What? So like I told everyone, you're a sex worker. I know that's not all about what you are, but that is a huge, probably the topic we'll be talking about most. So do you want to like introduce yourself, talk about what you do?
Yeah. So for sure. So about 6 years ago, I really started getting into like nude modeling and the whole like tattooed community as well. So I really started to branch out more, and then I kind of found did you guys go away?
No, you're full screen now.
Okay. I was like, holy shit, what happened? Sorry. But yeah.
So they don't have to see Spike and I's face.
I apologize. So I really got into like the tattoo community and then like the nude work. And then it kind of just, I think organically like branched into like kind of sex work. I started shooting for Suicide Girls. I am a suicide hopeful, so you can always go vote for me because I'll have a set coming out here soon. But yeah, like it really just started to like branch out. And then now I feel like sex work is really kind of blown up in a huge way. So I am one of the few people that will talk about it openly. I think we're becoming more and more like talkative about it because it's being more and more accepted, but it's still really scary for sex workers to come out because we're very ostracized once that happens. And it's not only with jobs, but relationships and all of the in-between.
So what specifically is your brand of sex work? And what I mean by that is, sex work is such a spectrum. You have, strippers, just being a nude model, anything that is basically sexual in nature is considered sex work. So what specifically?
So I do the nude modeling. I tried being a stripper. It didn't really work. No rhythm. So
need that.
And then now I do OnlyFans. So mine is very R-rated, I would say. Like I do a lot on mine.
Okay. That's 17, girl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, it's a little farther. So I do a lot more than like some of the other girls I've seen on there. So you just have to find like what your market is and like what you kind of brand out to. So
now, I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about it or not, but what would you say was that drew you to that in the first place? I'm always curious when I meet people that are sex workers. Because, and this is, I'm going to probably be the token not fully understanding it guy on this show. And when I say not fully understanding it, I don't mean that I have a problem with it. I just don't necessarily understand it. So what would you say kind of got you into that in the first place? Made you say this is what I want to do?
So before I started modeling, I didn't really have a lot of like self-esteem. So once I started modeling, this whole new like self-esteem and like awareness of like my body and like how beautiful people can be, I think really started to take over. And at least for me, like it was just a natural progression into like me finding like my sexuality and basically my feminism that I was kind of missing for a long time. So I don't think it was any like one thing. It just kind of naturally progressed to it.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So doing this feels empowering to you then?
Yeah, I am literally taking my body and what is done to it into my own hands. So for me, it's very empowering. Like no one else can tell me what to do with my body.
Doesn't she sound like a libertarian?
I've learned to not be pushy about it, right? Because what happens is this is how libertarians are. We talk to people and we're like, yeah, that sounds like libertarianism. And then they're like, no, I don't know. And then almost reflexively, they're like, no, I don't think it is. And we're like, no, we're like that too. When we first hear something, we say no. So this is what we do to people, right? And so I've learned to just kind of sit there and go, interesting. And then I'll say, well, as a libertarian, blah, blah, blah. And they'll go, oh, wow, I think that too. And I'll go, oh, how about that? So I just kind of let it flow organically because otherwise I get really close to the webcam and then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be a libertarian. So I'm going to not do that. I'm going to.
I did that for us.
I know you did. I'm going to let you be the one that does that.
It's funny though, because like, I don't know if Kryssi remembers, even in high school, I mean, look at the Mohawk. I was very vocal about my like thoughts on the government, thoughts on politics. Like I remember being so vocal because it's when George W. Bush was in office and I hated him. So like I was very openly against it. So like I feel like I've always been very into like government and politics and kind of knowing what's happening in my own country. So
yeah, I mean that Mohawk is a very strong statement about the government.
It is a strong statement about the government, society. I was like, fuck you guys.
And it's so funny because like people would be scared of her. But like, look at her, listen to her. Like, she's just like so nice. She just looked like a literal human symbol of anarchy.
I literally was though. Like, I was like, fuck everyone. So
you mentioned it a little bit when you were doing your introduction, dating and relationships. Like, how does that work?
Oh. Okay. This is a good question because we get this all the time. A lot of people think it would be like great, like guys would be so into it because you're so open and like you're not judgmental of like anything really. I'm not. Like whatever you want to do as long as it's consensual and everyone's of age, I'm fine. But yeah, it was just crazy because I was just like, you would think that like relationships would come easy, but they don't. Like I get into relationships and almost like I can kind of like see it progress. Like I'm upfront and honest with anyone that like I'm interested in, but for some reason they still think because you're a sex worker, there's certain things that you'll do when that's not you at all. So it's really frustrating. And I've just come to the terms that I'm going to be alone with dogs till I'm 80. So I'm fine with that.
Dogs are better than men anyway.
I was going to say, like, if I was attracted to men, I'd probably pick dogs anyway. Like I would be like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I actually rescue dogs too. So like I'm like in it.
So do you think some of it is because of the, like, I guess the stigma around sex work, or just sort of the reality of what sex work entails? Like how much of it do you think is just sort of like a social stigma around sex work?
I think it's like a little of both, but I think a majority of people like think we're easy, we're gonna cheat on them. Like it's these weird stigmas that people put in there that like, no, some of us just do it because I would like to have extra money a month. So, and then some of us just, that's their life. Like that's what they do. So no, I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest.
I think a lot of people, especially, the older generations that, they kind of pass it down to people, they don't understand how someone could do something like sex work. I mean, if you're going as far as talking about like prostitution, how you can do that without loving the person, without being attracted to that person. They don't know how to separate sex and love. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, other people are able to do that. And so, you know, do you find like a lot of men are like, how do you even do stuff like that? You know, is that a thing? I know it's a thing. I already know the answer to this, but I just wanna...
Yeah, it's a thing.
You get a lot of harassment.
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it's like, okay, so I always tell people when they want to get into this industry, you better grow the thickest skin, because you will have things said to you, you will have things tried to be done to you, all because you're a sex worker or a nude model or someone that they find risque. But yeah, like, it's terrifying.
Which is weird to me, because so much of the stigma about sex work is, you know, the nature of what it is, that it's, you know, that, you know, it's sexual, and it's, you know, that it takes the love out of sex or whatever that they're saying that it does. But then their response is to be almost like sexually abusive to the person that it's happening, that's doing this. And I think, well, that's certainly taken the love out of sex. Like, I mean, that, you know, like it's a weird reaction. I mean, I can tell you, growing up, I had a very, you know, sex work was presented to me as prostitution, and, you know, the people doing it are, you know, have been hooked onto drugs, and they're feeding you know, like, you know, sort of the stereotypical, you know, the worst examples, most abusive examples of sex work. And so I'd be lying if I said that probably hasn't colored, you know, my perception of it even as an adult. But even then, I would look at folks that, you know, that I thought were going through something like that with empathy and with a desire to help them and have them, you know, be able to get out of whatever situation they were in, not to attack them or abuse it. I live in South Carolina, in Myrtle Beach, and we at one point were the strip club capital of the Bible Belt, which was kind of funny. It's where all the pastors and deacons would come to, like, get escorts. And so, you know, growing up, that, you know, you almost kind of felt bad for some of them, but then to see people actually harassing them, and I think, well, that's, if we're doing this because of our traditional values, this is an odd way to go about that, to, like, you know, sexually harass them. So I've always found that weird and hypocritical.
Oh, no, I completely agree with you. So I grew up actually in a Baptist church. A lot of people don't know that, but I went for like 16 years. It's half the reason I got that mohawk was so I didn't have to go back to church, though. So. But yeah, no, it definitely paints like prostitution as this horrible thing, that your body's this temple and you have to cover it up. My body's a fucking temple and I want to show it off. Like, I don't understand half the stuff that they were teaching back then. So I completely agree.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Kryssi.
Go ahead, Spikel.
So I guess I was gonna. One of the biggest things we talk about is libertarians. Not that you're one. I certainly wouldn't put that on you.
You would not accuse that.
It's so funny when we were off camera when you were talking about it, and you said something about, you know, oh, I'm fine with people doing whatever as long as it's consensual, and I'm sitting there like, this is
yeah.
I want to say it, but I'm not going to say it. So, you know, but so much of what we as libertarians believe is that when we talk about the abusive things that often happen among many that are in sex work, it's because of it being criminalized and because of a black market that exists to feed a desire that many people have. And that when you, same thing with drugs or guns or anything else, when you make something illegal, that isn't in and of itself immediately victimizing anyone, you create a black market for that thing. and you end up creating more victimization because those services are now being facilitated by people who don't care what the law is. So it's going to be, you know, filled by actual criminals who are fine with victimizing people. And it's also going to lead to corruption of government because those people have to pay off people in government to be able to continue doing it illegally. And so that leads to a worsening of all, and it makes it where sex workers who are experiencing abuse or witnessing abuse, whether we're talking sex trafficking, and you're on OnlyFans, so obviously it's a little bit different there. But, you know, in general, people that are doing sex work, when they see abuse that's happening in that field, they're less likely to report it, because if they do, they have to admit they're a sex worker and they can face prosecution as a result of it. So, you know, we recognize that, you know, that decriminalizing, legalizing, whatever you want to call it, you know, getting government out of it and allowing people to do consensual things actually gets rid of a lot of the abuse that we see. With that said, yours I know is different because you're on a website and you've got people that are, you know, members and stuff. So it's not the same types of interactions that many other sex workers have. But are there ways in which the fact that sex work is, you know, illegal, that affects what you're doing, or are you kind of insulated from that because of the nature of how you're doing it?
No, I definitely still feel that. And I mean, it's more like too that you're worried that you might get outed and your job might fire you.
Yeah.
So it's like stuff like that you kind of like have to constantly think of in the back of your mind. Luckily, I've been to places that, you know, if someone knew, they didn't really care. So I kind of got away with it. But yeah, like it's still definitely there. We get people that stalk us. So then sometimes it is in person. So even though I'm behind a camera, like people can still find me. So it is still like it is still kind of worrisome in the same, not in the same aspect. No, because I don't go through what most of those people go through. Because again, sex working is very fluid. It's kind of everything now that is sexual orientation. So yeah, we still feel it. It's just not to the same degree.
Because you're not actually like meeting with clients and stuff like that. Yours is solely like nude modeling, basically, right?
Well, nude modeling, yeah, and then now the OnlyFans, yeah. So I still categorize those as two, but yeah.
Okay, but not like actual in-person client meetings and stuff like that. So that probably provides a little bit of insulation that from some of the worst things that those who do like in-person stuff would probably face, I would imagine.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they have far more risks involved because it's criminalized so heavily, and sex trafficking and all of that that's now a part of that. So yeah, I completely agree. They take more of that brunt than we do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard about, I'm sure you have, SESTA, you know, they passed a law basically making Craigslist and Backpage and all of those basically illegal because there might be sex trafficking. And a lot of sex workers have came forward and said, like, this is now much more dangerous. We used to be able to use those sites so we could vet people. We used to be able to talk to them ahead of time. Now you got people doing, you know, going kind of back to on the streets, or maybe there's that barrier to entry. They don't have the money to make their own website and to get the marketing and the trafficking, or, you know, the traffic to their website. So it's created this problem again where you have the pimps situation. Before this law, a lot of women were running their own business. And so now it's just gotten absolutely insane. Has there been any kind of like crackdown or anything on OnlyFans? Like, are people getting mad? Like, want to take it down?
It's kind of like the whole Bella Thorne thing that happened. I don't know if you guys remember when she joined, it kind of caused like a huge commotion. And we were all because I'm in a lot of different group chats with different sex workers and models. We were all very concerned that was going to get taken down. And yeah, like we constantly will find things that work for us and they will get popular and then they get shut down. And that's frustrating in itself because a lot of girls I know, they'll lose that money that they had like saved in that bank there that they were kind of banking on. it's hard too, because a lot of times we'll make a site popular and then they'll start cracking it down harder on us, like Instagram. You show like a little side nipple, if that, and then you're out. So I do feel like they crack down on us a lot.
Unless your name is Spike Cohen.
I was going to say, so this is the one thing that I'm glad happened from Nipplegate. And that is that in the midst of everyone freaking out about the existence of my nipples, no one was saying, no one was saying, even in the midst of it, because I understood why some people were upset. They're like, you're running for vice president. Why are you wearing, where's your shirt? And whatever. So and I got that. But even in the midst of that, there was never anyone who was like, this is indecent. And, what if my kids saw this or something like that? And there were a few people I knew who are sex workers or who are allies for sex workers who said, Spike's getting a minuscule taste of what we get, and even still not getting the full brunt of it. That, if we were to just take our shirt off during a podcast or whatever, not only it would get taken down, and there'd be all these people, freaking out and saying, what if my kids saw, female nipples? And what would happen? What is this?
Nippletarian.
Sure. Yeah. No, we'll go with that. Nippletarianism is it's the future. It's the future of libertarianism is nippletarianism. I'm actually an anarcho-nippleist. But so, seeing that reaction, that it was like, okay, but this magic difference between nipples. And there was actually a protest called Free the Nipple. And it was where they would protest that the fact that women couldn't have their nipples out, basically. And what they would do is they'd have women out topless, but they'd be wearing pasties, but the pasties were famous people's nipples. So it would be like, a woman who's completely, topless, but with these pasties on, but the pasties are Brad Pitt's nipples. Or Samuel L. Jackson's nipples, or whatever. Like, it was, all these famous male nipples. And so when the police would show up, they go, no, officer, this is fine. And they'd have like a printout of the actual celebrity and be like, no, this is fine. These are not my nipples. This is a pasty. It's just of this person. And the officer would, oh, okay, well, that's perfectly legal. Like that, and just the absurdity of that. So I hope if nothing else, Nipplegate helped people realize the whole nipple absurdity there.
I think that now we need to fundraise by making Spike nipple pasties. And
I'll wear them.
I know.
You'll wear them?
Sure. Yeah, I'll wear them.
That's my favorite look Spike gives, and it's just like, God damn it, Kryssi. And it's his fault. He's the one that talked about it, and he put the idea in my head.
I love it. I'm all for it. So.
I know. I'm good. So I can now tell my wife that I technically am on OnlyFans.
No, just your nipples, like just
my nipples. And it's on another woman. It's fine.
Right.
Like, it's nothing weird.
No.
It's nothing weird.
So speaking of, like, I heard the word protest, and so I kind of want to go into more of like your political ideology. Again, we hung out at BLM, and from my perspective, I have just always figured you're kind of like an independent. What draws you to activism, and what kind of activism do you do, and tell us, girl, tell us the deets. Be on C-SPAN.
Oh my God, you guys are making me nervous over here.
If it means anything, half of my audience is in the comments drunk. So
okay, that's good. That makes me feel better. So I don't know. I guess just from like a young age, and I really kind of attribute it to like punk rock music and stuff. I've always hated the government. Like, I just don't understand like why they're in our shit all the time. So sorry.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, like I feel like
I know, that was like, yes, exactly.
Sorry. Okay. No, I'm so nervous right now. So yeah, I don't like the government. I think they lie to us. Yes, I feel like some instances where, okay, we should probably have someone representing us, but like, I feel like for the most part, they're just they don't have our best interests at heart, and I don't think they have for a very long time. And that's really evident the more and more we see of these politicians. So
I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, and you're a I know. She sounds, I'm telling you, I think she's like more anarchist leaning rather than libertarian.
Yeah,
She should run for office, and her slogan can be, "I don't want the government up in our shit."
Yeah.
That's
like literally
slogan.
just that she would instantly, just by having that sign with that slogan on it in a handful of locations in your area, you would get 20% just right off the bat, easily get 20%.
So like I don't know how this like lines up with like libertarians though. I do feel like their social like programs are still needed though, and I know that has to be dealt out through the government. So I don't know where you guys stand on that, but I still believe that like we should be getting, fair minimum wage, like living wages, like our health care is atrocious, like things like that. I still feel like we need that. So
yeah, we're definitely not gonna like debate, and make you be like, you're wrong. From our perspective, most of the time, if not all the time, private entities have done better just because the government's so incompetent, right? Like they're just so fucking dumb that I don't like in charge of shit. But I have tons of friends that, like you, feel that way about social issues. And, while I don't like it, I can understand where you're coming from and where the need is coming from. And I know it's from a good place in your heart. Unlike Republicans' viewpoints, most of them are just dumb. But I feel a lot of progressives, when they talk about social issues, they're not coming from I want to run your life. I know better than you. I, want this. You're coming from a good place in your heart because you want to see people helped.
Yeah, when someone says, I would like for people to not have to worry about, losing their, going bankrupt because of healthcare, that isn't a place of control. That's a place of concern. And what libertarians believe is that the reason that we're in a situation where we're worried about the cost of healthcare and the cost of housing and the cost of higher education and the cost of everything else is because government policies have driven up the cost of these things and have made the value of the money that they force us to use increasingly lose value, so that it's like this sort of like we're trying to climb out of a pit of that while we're in quicksand, and it's as a result of their policy. So we believe that a good and just society is one in which people don't have to worry about the cost of healthcare, in which people can actually afford the things they need, in which they're able to make a living that they can live off of. We just think government is a uniquely terrible organization to put in charge of that. And so that's sort of our take on that. But we don't, I think often we get labeled as, we don't care about people because we don't want the government to do X. And it's more that we want these things to happen. We just think government is the last person we would go to ask them to do this thing, right? Like it would be like, it's sort of like when you'll hear a conservative say something like, well, but the next time someone breaks into your house, call a crackhead instead of a cop. And you're like, yeah, no, I think I will call a crackhead because they'll show up and for like $10 they'll find my stuff. And, and they won't potentially beat me or tase me or shoot my dog or whatever. And so we're sort of that way, but with everything.
We take hating the government to a
completely different level. Yeah. You turned it into an ideology.
I think maybe like capitalism is kind of like skewed a lot of our views, because like I view private companies and like big box companies as bad. So I think it's just like, for me, it's just trying to find where we can have those private companies that I feel like aren't taking advantage of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when we see like the big, and this is a perfect example of terminology. I often don't use the term private because when normal human beings hear the term private, they think Walmart, they think Microsoft, we're thinking like small businesses, we're thinking nonprofits, we're thinking charity and mutual aid, but often that term private, and I think you're right. I think that the status quo that we're in often the term private or free enterprise or capitalism are associated with things like mega corporations that, you know, run roughshod over us and tell us how to live and go to their politician friends and get trillions of dollars in bailouts whenever they want them and that kind of stuff. And that's the opposite of what we want. We actually see that as that kind of drives home exactly what we don't want, you know, which is this sort of top-down system that is protected by, you know, government regulations that were created by those same, you know, major corporations. So speaking of sex work, I wanted to ask you, just out of curiosity, are there any stigmas you have about sex work? You know, I mean, you said you grew up in a Baptist church, and you know, so even though obviously you've rebelled, you know, against a lot of that stuff, there may be some of that. Is there anything in the world of sex work that you look at, not necessarily say, you know, this needs to be put to a stop, but more just, wow, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Is there anything that kind of maybe is a stigma that you feel about an aspect of sex work?
That's a really good question. I feel like for me, at least, because again, I'm not speaking for all of sex workers. These are just my personal experiences. But at least for me, yeah, it's kind of hard. It was just things that I felt about myself, not about the industry, but just about myself, because like you're taught like in Bible Baptist church that like you can't show your body or you're going to hell. Like everything that I do, I'd be in hell like tenfold for. So for me, it was more like, this is really bad. But because like, again, it was just how I was like brought up. So I had to really kind of unlearn those things that, you know, no, I feel like I'm more empowered now than I was before. So no, that was, I think, the only real stigma that I had into it. I knew that it was going to still be risky, and meaning like, you know, like I might get fired, like I could get stalkers, things like that. I think for me, I still knew that was happening. And that is kind of a stigma in itself because it is criminalized. So this is what our reality is with it. But yeah, I think those were the only two like stigmas I had. And it was just, again, about me and how I perceived it.
I was going to say that sounded more like almost like a self-perception thing that was based on the, I guess, purity culture that you were raised in, that you're sort of deprogramming yourself from in doing this more so than, well, I guess that's still a stigma on the work, but it was more kind of internalized because that was how it was presented to you. It was like, well, sex work is bad because you're evil if you do this, as opposed to, you know, and what's interesting is, you know, for men, it's often presented somewhat differently, right? So it's like, you know, so it's often like, for example, you know, they're still saying if you do this, it's bad that you're doing this, but they'll also say, so we need to make sure that the woman's covered up so that you're not tempted, and you know, and just like odd things like that. Like very rarely. I mean, I guess maybe if there were men dressing, you know, scantily clad, they might say the same thing to them. But because the onus is on women to be the sexual being and men to be the consumer of that sex, it presents itself as like, well, if she's not, you know, married to you, then, you know, you shouldn't be looking. But that's kind of her fault. She needs to like not dress that way, even though. And again, I'm Jewish, but I do know that in the Bible, no, I know, but I also know that in the Bible, there are specific references to Jesus telling you that if a part of your body is tempting you, to cut it off and take it out of your body, because that's a you thing. It's not the person's, oh, Jesus, that woman, I'm not saying Jesus like a swear. I'm like, oh, Jesus, who I'm speaking to, this woman is really, look at this. It's incredible. And I can't stop looking. And Jesus is like, so cut your eyeballs out because you are the one looking. And it's interesting that has turned into, if the woman isn't wearing like a potato sack, then it's her fault that she's getting any kind of, you know, sexual advances. And even if she is wearing the potato sack, you know, it's a flashy potato sack. So it's still kind of her fault.
Jesus Christ.
No, but that's definitely like our religious upbringing. Like, wouldn't you say, like, we've been so ingrained for all of these years with like this religious thought that like the man owns us. So I still think, even though like we're not close to it at all, like we used to be, that's still ingrained in us that I'm owned by a man and my body belongs to that man, which isn't the case at all. So
well, it's the way things are still. There's even outside of the religious aspect of it, there's still this sort of overall concept that women are the providers of sex and men are the consumers of sex. And all of the dynamics that are built into that. I would imagine that, I don't know statistics, but I would assume just anecdotally, it looks like, well, I don't know if 80% of sex workers are women, and probably 70 or 80% of the consumers of sex work are men. And again, the numbers may be way different than that, but that just, from what I've seen, I think like one male sex worker, and I know, especially in libertarian circles, many women, female sex workers. So I'm assuming that that's probably a good sampling. I mean, in your OnlyFans and sex work community, is that kind of it's pretty heavily skewed towards women being the ones providing, right?
yeah, so like I actually looked up the numbers before I got on here. I did some research, guys. So 70% are women, 20% are male, and 10% are the consumers. Which I didn't think about that at all, but like 10% are consumers. But yeah, I do know a lot of male sex workers now. I follow a lot of male sex workers on OnlyFans as well.
Yeah.
Like I found a lot of people like through the porn industry that I kind of want to follow and like support them too. So yeah, I definitely think that it's definitely now, especially with sex work becoming so much more open with OnlyFans and like celebrities talking about it. I definitely think that it is a little bit more saturated now with those numbers too, because I think everyone's in there now. I love it, but it's also like, it also does hurt the older sex workers that have been doing this for a while, because
right,
just flooding the system. So
well, and you're competing. Yeah, well, no, but now you're going
to be a tangent on. This is the whole point.
This is the Chris and Tangent show with Cohen and Kryssi. But no, I mean, I would imagine, as it becomes mainstream, now you've got like celebrities coming on. It's like, wait a second, how am I supposed to compete with an actual like film actress or whatever? Yeah.
No, I cannot compete with Cardi B or like Megan Thee Stallion. Like, no, they're hot. So yeah.
You're super hot too. They're just famous.
Well, yeah, but that helps a lot.
I would imagine fame helps. Yes. Yeah.
What other cool research did you do that you want to share with us? Like, I don't want to not ask you the right question and not hear this awesome research.
No, I was just more looking at like more decriminalization of sex work, how we are being silenced more than like, especially with the whole Donald Trump thing happening. It really kind of irritated me because we are way more censored than he was, and he had to incite violence for him to finally get banned. It's baffling to me. But anyway, sorry. Well, those are my big things that I kind of like wanted to see. It's nothing crazy.
No, nothing crazy, just Capitol riots and a dictatorship possibly.
No, it's really frustrating though, because like I know a lot of friends, especially like in the UK, they are fighting the same thing in their country. It's like all over the world, we have to fight for the rights just to kind of say what we can do with our bodies, and it's really frustrating. I think that was my main like focus that I wanted to at least say tonight, is that we have to fight for basic things that everyone else kind of just gets. So it's frustrating for us, but we're glad that we can bring it to light. So
well, I'm glad that you are willing and brave enough to come and talk about that. I know it's hard. One thing that Acrux and I have in common is it's in the realm of sex work. I had sugar daddies. A lot of people know that. I was on Dr. Phil making a fool of myself. And
you're on Dr. Phil?
You didn't know that?
No.
Oh.
I'll send it to you.
I want to see this. I want to see.
I will send it to you.
Yeah, I want to see that. Go ahead. Go.
It was because I had sugar daddies, and of course they lied to me and told me I was going to come on and talk about, how it's not prostitution and all this stuff. And I get there and they totally did the opposite. And, but I was prepared. Like you'll see in the clip, Dr. Phil's like, we're all hookers. And I'm like, no, I sell my hotness or something like that. And if you got it, flaunt it. If you can flaunt it, get paid for it. Why not? Like, just being ridiculous. He asked me if I paid taxes on it. And I said, taxation is theft on TV. Yeah.
How did I not know this?
How did you not know this? When I ran for office, they talked about it in the media a bunch. And I was like, yeah. And there should not be a stigma on it. I was basically just a high-priced escort that didn't even have to sleep with them because men are dumb. And men are really fucking dumb sometimes. So, and I personally liked it. I got to meet a lot of really successful men that helped mentor me and gave me like professional advice. You seem shocked right now.
I just did. How did I not know you were on Dr. Phil? I'll watch it later. Sorry, I'm just.
I'll send you like the 2.5 minute clip because just like your Kennedy shows, a couple minutes. Yeah. So I mean, I was 21. It was like, God, 10 years ago. I'm fucking old. By the way, happy birthday to me. It was my birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
We are both Capricorns, right?
Well, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
I also kind of want to point out though that like even like prostitution is still stigmatized so poorly. Like I feel like girls that make men pay for sex are smart. Like most of these ladies are out there just giving it away for free at this point, like 3 or 5 times like a week, and they don't even know who they're sleeping with, and some of them don't even use protection. We're the safest and cleanest, I guarantee you. I think it's crazy that like even prostitution is so stigmatized so poorly, because if she's not being trafficked and all of the bad stuff that kind of go with it, if it's her own self, I think it should be 100% legal.
Yeah, there's many times when I would be going out to these really, really nice restaurants and getting these really nice clothes and really nice gifts, where my friends would be like, do you seriously do that? I'm like, your boyfriend just took you to McDonald's for dinner. All right?
Have
like,
fun with that.
I don't even want to hear it. And you fucked him after and you have no money. So I don't even have to fuck him after. All right.
You probably gave him money after. Like that's probably what happened.
You paid for your own meal.
Yeah, like you gave him some money because he was running low again.
Yeah, you paid his car payment this month, bitch. So like Dr. Phil even asked me, and this is something I think a lot of people think, that if you have sugar daddies, if you have OnlyFans, if you are a sex worker, that you must have a low self-esteem. Like you must have daddy issues. You must think less of yourself. And I just, when I was going on dates with old rich men, I thought I was the fucking shit. I was like, someone wants to pay me for my personality? I'm a fucking bad bitch. Oh my God, they want to give me $500 and buy me dinner and take me to Vegas? What the fuck? This is amazing. I am awesome. That's probably the whole reason I have such a big ego, is because men used to pay me for my time. And
I think I just realized that I'm escorting. I'm being flown around because it's not sexual.
Yeah, no,
they just want
still
me to
escorting.
Come and talk to them. They just want me to come and talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's what you're doing, Spike. Sorry. Sorry to tell you. But it's honestly super empowering. And I know where you're coming from, Acrux, when you say that it's empowering, because it makes you feel like you are in complete control of not only your body, but your income, your lifestyle, your everything. When I started doing this, I didn't have to work as much. I could spend time studying for school, being with my son and my husband. Well, at the time I was not married to Brandon. Trust me, he's just not cool with letting me do that anymore. I'm like, come on. I'm not even like as cute as I used to be, so it definitely wouldn't work anymore, and I'm too old. But
I'm 32. Let's just throw that out.
30. I'm going to be 39, so enough.
Yeah.
I know. So I'm a boom. I am a boom. I'm technically a millennial. I'm just balding. I'm a millennial with male pattern baldness.
All the hairs are on your nipples.
I mean, that's accurate, but whatever.
But yeah, so I totally I know that it's hard to talk about, especially publicly, and I really thank you for being that brave to talk about it, because it's not it's something that, you know, once you talk about once publicly, something that everyone will know about you for the rest of your life, except for Spike Cohen, because he does not pay attention to his own friends. But it's hard, and it's really courageous that you talk about it as openly as you do. If anyone wants to follow her OnlyFans, it's onlyfans.com/officially Acrux. Do you like that? That was good. Yeah.
I know I was showcasing it for you, like Vanna White.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and I'll put it in the comments if anyone wants to follow her. But if she is nice enough to accept you on her social media, her posts are fire. She comes at it. She will make you basically want to kiss her feet, but you have to pay for it.
Or cry.
Which is fair.
It's either one.
Yeah, or cry.
I
You have to pay for that too.
Threats. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I know you get death threats. That's insane.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do a lot. So
I want to kill
So
you.
don't follow her. Don't follow her for death threats. If you want to cry or do foot play stuff, then follow her for that. But don't no death threats. And if you're watching this, because I know I'm also a male libertarian. If you are following her because you want to tell her she's a libertarian, light, kind touches, folks. Like, this is not. Don't do the thing that happens sometimes. Okay,
and
thank you.
She's not the average normal person that we talk to. Oh, by the way, that's not trying to be offensive. We call people who aren't libertarians normies because we are
normal.
Not normal.
Yeah, normal people. Like
Normal
normally
people.
wired people.
She is intelligent. She knows, you know, what we are, and she doesn't need to be mansplained to about.
Oh, please don't.
She gets mansplained to a lot, and she's actually very intelligent. So it's not like she's just some dumb normie who doesn't know what she's talking about. She knows what she's talking about. She is allowed to have her own views, and she, believe it or not, we let her. And
because we believe in people, you know, we allow people to have opinions. The fact that when she drives by and sees like a public park sign, she doesn't start frothing doesn't mean you don't have to attack her for that.
Yeah, she's allowed to have her own opinions, and she's not just a talk the talk person. She does show up. She's in it. She's part of activism. She fosters dogs and rescues them. And she's a great, smart person. Please don't go and mansplain my friend. Like, this is my friend. Like, outside of the shit, she's my friend.
Actual friend,
Dad, I have friends. I told you I did.
I don't have a lot either.
I just don't want any of my people being mean to you. And it's sad that I feel like I need to say this. That we do not bully normal people. We bully Spike Cohen.
Yeah, only I'm the only acceptable target for cyberbullying in the libertarian community anymore. So leave the normal people alone.
Yeah. So I hope that you go and check out her OnlyFans. I hope you go. And I'm telling you, I was like, oh, I'm going to check this out. And I was like, whoa. I was like, holy shit. I was like, God damn. And like, Brandon didn't see me for like 10 minutes. I definitely couldn't make Spike after that. Like,
that was my greatest fear in all of this. Every time you would tag me, I'm like, oh no, please don't. Please. No. Okay, good. All right. Okay. I wouldn't go that
far. In my head, this is what I have, my own internal like thing. I think that if I would be in person with your wife and be like, look at this, isn't this silly? And she'd be like, oh, God damn it. If she wouldn't get actively angry, then it's fine.
That's the cutoff. Okay. Yeah. Putting me on like OnlyFans pictures would absolutely like make her hate you. So definitely don't do that. Okay. All right, good.
If I was going to, I would have already done it.
Yeah,
I know. No, I know. So that's why, like, when you were like, and especially you were like doing promos for the show, I'm like, oh God, no. And I've learned not to ask you not to do something because then you 100% will probably do it. And so I'm just like, and every time, 3 times a day, Kryssi has tagged you, Kryssi Wickers, you've been tagged in a photo by Kryssi Wickers, and I go and I'm like, what is it? Okay, all right, okay, sad react, and then go back to my day. And so okay, all right, good.
Yeah, I have an internal meter. I'm not as ridiculous. Actually, I'm probably way more ridiculous than people think, but I also have a little bit of intelligence, and I know where the line is. I teeter it. I teeter the line. I just don't
you brush the line briefly.
Yeah.
But then return to the
Yeah, like I wouldn't Photoshop you in pictures with women, like being sexually. If I'm going to Photoshop you in pictures of women, I'm going to Photoshop a man onto the woman's face with you because that's funnier. I wouldn't Photoshop anything that makes you look attractive because that's.
I know.
Of course.
And pretty much, that's pretty much it. Anything that I feel Tasha would be like, okay, you can't talk to her anymore.
Yeah, no, that's you have to block her. You have to block. Yeah. Don't make my wife tell me I have to be actively anti-Kryssi. Okay, it's gonna go poorly.
That's why when I sent her the Christmas card, I was like, this does not ride the line. It was very, very nice and friendly and wholesome.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, it was.
So anyway, we're a little over an hour now. Spike, do you have any other last questions you want to ask?
No, I don't think any last questions. I think I just want to encourage people that are watching this, whatever you feel about sex work, because I will admit when it comes to sexual stuff, I'm more on the traditional side of things. But I also recognize that, what was that?
You're a Jew. You have Jew sex.
I'm a Jew. Like but Jew sex aside, oh God, Jew sex aside, I can't get Jew sex out of my head.
I'm sorry.
But that aside, you know, whatever your personal thoughts are on sex work, remember that you're talking about a human being. And that, you know, even if, and again, most of the people watching this are libertarians, even if we disagree with what they're even if you disagree with what they're doing, or you think it's not something you would do or something you would want someone that you cared about to do, this is a person who has made a choice to do this thing. Treat them with that respect, even if you have an opinion about it. And let's focus on the fact that, you know, what they're doing is often criminalized, and that we know that when something that doesn't have a victim is criminalized, that it makes that thing worse and leads to people actually being, victimized and being treated poorly. But even outside of the whole, I may not agree with it, but it should be legal thing. Remember, we're talking about human beings here. And that, a sex worker is every bit as deserving of validation and love and empathy as someone who is not a sex worker. And, when we lead with empathy and when we lead with humanizing people and treating people like they deserve some respect, even if we don't agree with 100% of what they're doing, that is the way that was the way I was taught, from a religious standpoint, to treat people, that's how God would want us to treat people, however we feel about whatever it is they're doing or not doing. So that's really the only thing I would say is I just encourage people, think of people as people and approach people the way that you would want to be approached, and that the way that they want to be approached. And however you feel about what they're doing, treat them with a level of care and empathy, because more than likely, they probably need that more than you even know.
Aww. See,
it's true. Thank you. That was so nice of you. I am actually super nerdy and awkward, so I really just want you to think of the most nerdy, awkward person, and that's on the other side.
We're in the Libertarian Party. That's
we are those people. Yeah, that's us.
Okay, so that's me. So just think of it like that, because I will say a lot of my best friends are sex workers, and we're just normal, nerdy, awkward people. So
who hate the government.
More than likely, yes. Yeah, I know a couple that don't, but we don't associate with those people anymore. So.
Sex work is one thing, but liking the government is crossing a line that we just don't.
Hard no.
Hard no. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for coming on.
Thank you.
It was really enlightening. I think that a lot of people got a lot of value from this. Girl, if you go back and read the comments, everyone loves you. They're like,
oh, thank you.
tripping over themselves to like be your best friend right now. And you know, you have such a good way of being able to communicate without, you know, being douchey. And that's just the best way to be. You're just so not a douche. And I really appreciate you coming on here.
No,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you for coming
guys. Thank you. Seriously, I appreciate you even giving me a platform to speak on. So again, this is new for me. This is my first time ever doing this. So I do appreciate it.
I've only been trying to get you on here for like 6 months.
I know. What? It was a weird time. There was COVID.
So we'll have to make sure to send this out to all your agents so they can get you on podcasts.
Yeah, you can be my manager from now on. So.
Hey, I need a cut.
There we go. Fine. Done. Go.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I appreciate
Thank you.
Listening to me shitpost with my mouth. I love you all so much, and happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday.